So we're on a series where we're making short videos of notes from amidst the congregation that God gives me while I'm there. And this time we're talking about 2 Corinthians 12:4. It says there, how he was caught up into paradise and heard inexpressible words which it is not lawful for a man to utter. Now, it's commonly accepted that Paul is talking about himself here in the third person as an act of humility. And if that's true, which everyone agrees on this, it's obvious that it's a literary device. He's not talking about someone else, he's talking about himself. It says, inexpressible words which it is not lawful for a man to utter. Paul obeys law to not utter the words. Does it mean Christ was of no effect to him afterward? Because remember, Paul said that if you start following the law, that Christ is no longer of any effect for you. And so many of you will say, well, that means any law. That means any rule. That means obeying itself. That you try to obey God, then you are placing yourself under law, and grace has no point for you, and that Christ has become inert and ineffectual for your salvation. This is what we're hearing among so-called Christians today. It's blasphemous. It's abominable. It smells like the stench of a dead animal. You do not understand what the scriptures say. You can watch this video here where I talk about law, and I talk about Romans 8, and I compare it also with Galatians 5, and we find that we are indeed under law, not under the law of Moses, but we are under law. I can just say, point blank, it says that you are either under the law of the Spirit of life of Christ from Christ Jesus, or under the law of sin and death. You choose which law you're going to be under, but if you don't choose, then you're under the law of sin and death. But you are under law, some law, with rules you must obey. So for Paul to obey this which is not lawful, and therefore not do that thing which is not lawful, he's not making Christ inert for him. It's obedience to God. How can that make Christ inert? Christ said he did not come to loosen down the law and the prophets, but to fill up what was lacking by what he was going to tell in the next few verses. He's tightening it, not loosening it. He's adding to it, not subtracting from it. He's giving you what you can do in order to fulfill those righteous deeds in the law without putting yourself under the law. Do not even hate your brother in your heart. And if you don't do that, there's no way you're going to get any close to murdering him. Do not even think lustful thoughts about a woman. And if you do that, you won't even get close to committing adultery. And see, so Jesus' law is perfect. Because not only does it fulfill the righteous requirements of the law of Moses without you being under the law of Moses, but it also gives you a righteousness which surpasses anyone who obeys the law of Moses, like the Pharisees. It's a lot to think about. But it's written in the New Testament, and therefore you know it is true and reliable. Contrary to what you hear in these apostate churches from these false teachers who call themselves Christians, who are famous preachers, and yet still false teachers of the apostate church, because it is contrary to God's testimony and God opposes them. Don't be opposed by God. Be agreeable to God, fully agreeable. May the Lord bless you as you seek him with all your heart.